your new building and the power lines are going to pretty well be obscured from any residential view. And I think we also asked to put show the solar panels too. Wasn't that one of our questions? Which it looks like you addressed the solar panels on the roof.
He did,
also.
yeah. He showed those in one of those aerial renderings. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ho. Any comments or questions?
So you say me, John?
Yes.
Broke off, sorry. I don't have any comments.
Excellent. Great. Commissioner Jefferson.
I just want to repeat Commissioner Scarfano's comments. Thank you for coming back and all the additional effort that went into it. It looks really strong, and both from the neighbor's point of view and long-term for the view of Los Angeles. It's great.
Thank you. And Commissioner Paquette.
I also want to commend you for working with your neighbors to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible with my favorite drought-tolerant Palo Verde tree.
Excellent. And then is there any public comment on the item 4A? If there is, for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Mr. Bay, if there is any, if you'll let me know kindly.
There are none at the moment.
Excellent. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve item 4A, the LADWP LAX Receiving Station X?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Jefferson, seconded by Commissioner Scarfano. Excellent. I'm going to call the roll in this order. Let's see. Commissioner Scarfano, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Ho.
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Commissioner Paquette.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you for all of the effort for everyone there at LAX and at Gruen and Arup. Best of luck. Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And again, Scott Bay, my apologies. I usually have these loaded and ready to go. So I will resume my duties of driving presentations here. So I'll pull up the presentation for the next item, which is item 4B as in Bravo, the Hollywood Sanitation Yard. So let me pull this up right now and share my screen. You should be able to see that now. Commissioner Scarfano, can you see my screen? Thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, excellent. We're good. So we will go to staff really quickly if they need an introduction. Mr. Amanisian.
Hello.
There you are. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, Hollywood Sanitation Yard is a new project that it demolishes all the existing buildings on the site. It's an old site which is not up to date, and they're providing a really nice replacement for it, actually.
Excellent.
Celso Del Pozo is the project manager from the city, and it's all city designed and presented. City architects. Jenny Lim is architect, and design associate Melissa Lam. And I saw their name waiting to be presenting.
Excellent. So will it be Jenny Lim or Melissa Lam that'll be presenting to us today?
Might be Celso that might do it.
Celso? Oh, is Celso? Perfect. We'll hand it off to Celso.
Yes.
Celso, are you there? Are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Oh, sorry. I was looking for a visual, but yes, if you like to give a little introduction, or you'll be presenting to us today?
Yeah, just giving an introduction, as Harout said, saying that this is a new project. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what this project all about. This is the third of the series of 5 sanitation yards that is being redeveloped. The first one that we did is South District Yard, which is in Council District 8. And we just finished construction last July. And we're doing this one after the other. So the second project that we did is the North Hollywood Yard that's in Council District 2. Just started construction last March. And there are two other projects that's in the pipeline, which is we see the yard in Council District 3, and the next one will be West LA, I believe, will be on Council District 5. With this Hollywood Sanitation Yard, it's expected to start construction about mid of 2022. So the primary function of this yard facility is to house service vehicles that are being dispatched daily to maintain and service storms and sewer infrastructure throughout Los Angeles, including responding to everyday's emergency calls for service. Next slide, please. Yeah, this facility has been in service for over 50 years. It's actually built in mid-60s and has outgrown its current functional needs to support daily activity in the yard. The existing facility, as you can see, is lacking of sufficient space to house today's large vehicle that they're using every day. That being said, the only viable solution is to demolish those underutilized buildings and to redevelop the entire site to have efficient circulation within the facility. This proposed project will also, following the strict sustainable guidelines of the USGBC LEED rating, with the goal to attain a gold level certification. In addition, just like the previous yards that we did, this will have also designed as a net zero energy facility, utilizing photovoltaic panel system that will generate up to 100% of the facility electric energy use. Next slide, please. Okay, here, please, let me turn over the design presentation to Melissa Lam, our design associate. Melissa.
Excellent. Melissa, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi,
Before
yes.
everybody else try. Yes, excellent, loud and clear. How are you?
Hi, good. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. As Celso mentioned earlier, the site functions as an administrative office and dispatch center for the sanitation trucks servicing the Hollywood region. And here we have photos of the existing Waring Avenue. You could see that the street edge is harsh and the building lacks street appeal. And then on the next slide, we have photos of the existing Cole Avenue. Similar to Waring Avenue, the street edge is also harsh, and the building is kind of having its back against the street edge. Yet Cole Avenue is more of a public corridor with the also existing street parking. There's also a adjacent 3-story building to the south of the project site. In the next slide, we have photos of the neighborhood context. So here we see directly across from the site on Cole Avenue is a 4-story residential complex. And on the next slide, we have photos of the interior site. So as Celso mentioned, the current buildings have outgrown its functional use. So you can see on the top right corner, for example, there's a sanitation truck that's a large truck that's too large to be parked in the existing garage bay. And then in the next slide, we have a site diagram. This site diagram is of the proposed project. This diagram shows the new two-story building placed on the corner of Waring and Cole Avenue to maximize street presence. The left side of the site serves as administration with potential community use, and the right side of the site serves the yard functions with the one-story yard storage. The next slide is a more detailed site plan. And we've designed the two-story building to be a compact footprint to align with the all-electric building, net zero energy, and LEED certification goals. The parking adjacent to the building is shaded with photovoltaic canopies that generate energy for building consumption. The new defined entry is off of Cole Avenue into a plaza where there's opportunity for community events. The building is also set back, which allows opportunity to provide landscape along both street edges. Next, I'll have Rick Fisher, our landscape architect. He'll talk more about the landscape concept.
Excellent. Mr. Fisher, I don't believe we have you on the agenda, but if you could state your name and your affiliation for the record, and the floor is yours.
Rick Fisher, I'm a landscape architect with the Bureau of Engineering's Architectural Division.
Oh, great.
As Melissa mentioned, the landscaping is emphasizing the corner where the building is set back a little bit. The sides of the property have a metal grill type fence with a vine planting to sort of create a 75-50% sort of covering to allow a little bit of visual, but a lot of softening. And either side of the gates. In front of the buildings, we've emphasized planting that's very drought tolerant, very hardy, very minimal water, with an emphasis on creating some layering for a little bit of depth in granted a small space, and a lot of emphasis on strong color and texture to give a little visual pop, as well as complement some of the architectural moves that are going on. And you'll see in the next few slides of the renderings, you'll see additional views of the same landscape elements. I also want to mention that along Cole Avenue, the existing sidewalk has one or two palm trees, one of which is dead, and one existing street tree that conflicted with the need for the driveway location. So we're replacing 5 new street trees along Cole Avenue with a real emphasis on trying to make Cole Avenue a much more inviting pedestrian corridor. And there's one large street tree on the north side of Wareham that's going to remain, you can see in front of the building. So I think I will hand it off to Jenny at this point, and I think Jenny's going to carry on.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Ms. Jenny Lim. Ms.
Hi,
Lim.
hello. I'm Jenny. I'm the project architect.
Welcome.
Thank you. I want to speak a little bit more on the building more specifically. Next slide, please. Here on the west side elevation, you can see the building is anchored at the north end of the site. The concept of the building is a juxtaposition of 2 forms, with one solid form interlocked by a lighter form that creates a formal entry. The material palette includes a fiber cement panel. You can see that numbered as keynote number 2. It provides the strong base for the building. The upper mass is a smooth stucco called out by keynote number 1, with wood accents serving as sun shading elements. And this is called out by keynote number 3. The wood louvers are oriented horizontally to provide natural diffuse lighting into the space while shading against direct heat gains. The site fencing is a metal accent, which is called out by keynote number 4. And that is softened by drought tolerant vines that will provide privacy along the street edge. The yard storage is a mixture of a concrete masonry block, and that is anchored at the south of the site, and that is called out by keynote number 5. Next slide, please. Here are the 3D exterior images of the building. In the top left corner is a view of the building on Waring and Cole. You can see the landscape buffer softening the street corner. In this view, you can see that there's north-facing glazing for natural daylighting. This will daylight the office and the multi-purpose room on the 2nd floor. The multi-purpose room spills out into an exterior balcony that can be used for community events, further activating the street edge. At the top right, in the northeast corner, is the driveway entrance for staff parking that can be open to public during community events. And then at the bottom left is the southwest corner. It is the building entry and designed to have minimal openings to mitigate heat gain for the south side. The wood louvers serve as sun shading as well as highlight the main staircase connecting the entry lobby to the upper level multi-purpose room. The wood louvers also wrap around to the south face to frame the entry as well as provide further shading. Next slide, please. Here is the building floor plans, and they have evolved through our partnership with our client, LA Sanitation. The division manager, Ephraim Gonzalez, is, I believe, listening in here today. The community focused concept derived from LA Sanitation's support of community engagement. Sanitation hosts community events to bring awareness on sustainability practices. On the first floor to the left, in pink, are the staff locker rooms. And on the 2nd floor in blue are the administrative offices. Colored in green is the entry lobby at the 1st floor. That connects directly to the stairs, colored in yellow, that leads directly to the 2nd floor multi-purpose room in green. Collectively, these spaces were designed for flexibility and ease of community access. Next slide, please. The section cuts here illustrate the connection between the ground level transition to the 2nd floor multi-purpose room. Next slide, please. This is the interior palette. It really maintains a clean, simple elegance and enhances the interior space to feel larger and warmer. Some materials are extensions of the exterior, like the concrete and the wood, the concrete floor and the wood finishes. Next slide, please. This is a lighting plan diagram showing the location of the fixture types at night. Conceptually, the lighting concept is to highlight the building as a beacon within the community. Wall-mounted lights and recessed soffit lights wash the building walls and illuminate the landscape. They also indirectly light pedestrian paths for nighttime security. Parking is also well lit with canopy ceiling lights and pole lights at the truck yard. Next slide, please. This is the view of the northwest corner again. The upper level deck multi-purpose room is lit with a soft glow. This is appropriate for evening and community events. Next slide, please. And again, this is the entry view. The main stairs at the west also have a diffused illumination through the wood louvers to provide a soft lighting near the building entrance. Thanks for your support. Are there any questions about our project?
It's like sorry, I was on mute there and talking. It's a sign of the times, I suppose. I'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, questions amongst the commissioners. So I will call on you if you have any questions or comments, please indicate so. Mr. Paquette.
I know the area very well. I run by your current facility often, and it's like you're building this beautiful new monument compared to what it currently is. So, Richard and Jenny, I appreciate the effort that you have put into making this something that is spectacularly aesthetically pleasing to the well-needed upgrade of Cole. I'll leave it to my more seasoned colleagues with the architectural design aspect of what you've done, but I want to applaud you for changing the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Commissioner Jefferson.
I would agree. I think this is really not only a marvelous step up, but it adds some greenery to a block that doesn't otherwise have it, a lot of it. So that in and of itself is a great addition for Los Angeles. And I also appreciate that there are some wood elements in this, even if they turn out to be, looks like wood, but isn't really wood, so it'll last longer. Appreciate the approach. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ho.
I may have missed it, but can you share any kind of community feedback or any outreach that was done or submitted?
When we're speaking of outreach, LA Sanitation has a lot of these type of events where they might host open house or educate community on sustainability. Our team in itself hasn't reached out to the community.
Okay, and is that part of the process, or it's a beautiful building? So I want to be mindful that the community had some kind of input, or that you were accountable to, that every department or any project is accountable to community feedback. I don't know if that is part of the process or not, but I'd like to hear if anything was done for this project, but it doesn't sound like anything's been done for this. So I can't imagine them being so totally surprised because it's a beautiful building, but again, there is an element of surprise with construction. And I would not want the community to be the last group of people to see a beautiful building go up in front of them. Can you just, John, I don't know where we go from here, but where my focus is, and I don't know if Jenny or your team can address that part of it, because we asked that of all projects.
Yeah, particularly public facilities, just sort of the efforts of outreach that were done. So if it's, we've seen other BOE projects that have had any number of range of community input. So maybe perhaps if the design team can speak to maybe the reasons why that wasn't part of this process in particular.
Yeah, forgive me, my video was off earlier and now it's my mic. Yes, definitely it's part of the process. Actually, our client here, Efrain Gonzalez, we're collectively putting together a presentation for the council member. And soon, of course, we're going to do some outreach, kind of present what we have. We're really proud to present our design, especially in-house. And definitely it's part of the process. Again, this is going to be in construction, not until like mid of 2022. So we're working on it. I think we have enough materials to able to present it to the community.
Understood. So I think I'm gonna go out on a limb here and speak perhaps on behalf of some of my commissioners. We do have a concern sometimes when there is the potential for a lot of material change in the process. So I guess my next question would be then, before I move on to the other commissioners, is if you guys are here for conceptual approval or conceptual and final approval.
This is for conceptual and final.
Okay, so with that said, in that community process, you're saying my understanding is, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong, that there will be a community engagement process for this project?
Yes, if the council member would like to share with the community, we are ready to do that. But for now, we definitely, we can first inform the council member for this new project.
Okay. Commissioner Ho, does that address your concerns?
It answers it, but it doesn't address it. My concern is that when you, couple questions, right? And if our say attorneys on here, this is a question: what is the protocol if you are not going to the community yet, and if you're presenting this to the council member and he decides or she decides that they're not going to share this with the community? I'm uncomfortable with giving final to something that the community has not given input in. That's a concern for me. I don't know if this is going out of protocol to come to us without any community input, which is fine as long as it has community input. But it is, I'm uncomfortable with giving final for something that the community has not seen.
Understood.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, Commissioner Ho?
No, it's a really beautiful building and very thought out. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And Commissioner Scarfano.
I want to commend your entire team. This is a very sophisticated building. It's simple, elegant, graceful. I know the corner also very well. I've lived down the street from here for 20 plus years, and I think it's going to be stunning. My only question to you guys is there, and maybe I don't know the answer to this, but since this is a BOE building, do you also, shouldn't there be an allocation for somewhere for public art? Has that been designated as a spot or thought of, or is that a requirement? That's my only question. Otherwise,
yes, it is a requirement. Basically, in every public building, we require to have a public art. And we also allocated some money for the art. I believe it's a process, another process that has to take place for selection of artists. So right now, we're still kind of deciding whether we're going to have it here at the site itself, or something that we have to get a 1%, I believe, is required. So there's some money that's allocated for it.
But have you thought about where it might be on the site, or has there been any consideration for that?
Right now, we kind of have a design of the facade that kind of have some open spaces, but we would like to leave it to the artists, see what they believe fits their arts. So that can be decided as we go through the process.
Okay.
Excellent. Anything else, Commissioner Scarfano? No, looks excellent. So
John,
what
Charmaine
I will-
has a question.
Oh,
or-
I'm sorry, Commissioner Jefferson.
Sorry,
Sorry, I've got a small.
First off, I wanted to thank Commissioner Ho for raising that. You know, I walked into this just assuming that it had already had public comment, and forgive me for not actually having that in my head. And I agree with that question. And so I wanted to make the suggestion that we approve it for conceptual and do final review at the point that we know that the community input has been there. And I don't just mean the councilman. I really commend the idea that this building was designed by our own city architects. I just think that's fabulous. There's such expertise within our city all over the place. Not that I'm against hiring outside contractors and architects and et cetera to do work, but this is a great example of that. It can be done on the inside. I think that the community will probably be very pleased and supportive, but so that we avoid surprises and that we also don't set up a precedent that things are coming to us just because they were done inside the city, but that they somehow or another didn't have to have the community input. I don't know that, I don't mean to suggest that was anybody's intent. I'm just simply saying that that's why that would be the best approach for us at the moment.
Excellent. So,
Appreciate it.
yeah, it sounds as though, let me, first see if there's any public comment on the item first. So if there's anyone joining us telephonically that has public comment for item 4B, please indicate by raising your hand, which is *9. Mr. Bay, if you'll kindly let me know if there's anyone that's, again, pressed *9 to raise their hand.
There are none at the moment.
Okay, there being none, is there a, so I guess kind of interpreting the conversation we're having, is there a motion to provide conceptual approval for the Hollywood sanitation yard before us?
I so move to approve. for consent.
So moved for conceptual by Commissioner Scrifano, seconded by,
I'll second.
I believe I heard Commissioner Paquette. All right, then I will call the roll. Commissioner Paquette, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
Excellent. Commissioner Jefferson,
Approve.
Commissioner Ho,
Approve.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Scrifano,
Yes.
excellent. Motion carries. Congratulations on conceptual approval, and we will see you for final approval in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. Let's see here. Excellent. Moving on. Our next item, we don't have any public art projects before us. We do have street lighting submissions. Item number 6. We've got a series of matching street lights before us, as well as one non-matching. Mr. Avanesian, would you like to chime in?
Well, this agenda is even simpler than the last times because basically there are two kinds of, one metal and one type of concrete that the most common ones that are used. So there's nothing new, it's just they're all, most of them are matching the other one. There's no existing light, so they're putting the most common type of light that matches the area.
Excellent. And the one non-matching is apparently there's no existing street light, so this will be the first to set the tone for that. Excellent. All right then, is there a motion to approve item 6 for street lighting as submitted by staff?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Scrifano, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Ho. I will call the roll here, if you'll forgive me for just a moment. Commissioner Scrifano, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Paquette.
Yes.
Excellent. The motion carries. Moving on to our next item. Item number 7, staff reports. I believe we have the general manager with us today.
You do have the general manager with you today.
Excellent. Love the background.
I also wanted to give a heads up. I think the next on our agenda is a update from our Arts Activation Fund and our team, Ben Espinoza. Can I hand it over to Ben?
That's right. Thank you, Danielle.
Take it away, Ben.
Oh, hello, everybody. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thanks for having us here and giving us the opportunity to share a quick update. On behalf of the grants team, I'm happy to share that one final update on our Arts Emergency Relief Fund, which of course was our repurposing of the 2019-20 Arts Activation Fund. We ran this program in collaboration with community partners from March through July of this year in response to COVID-19. Since our last update on this program, pleased to share that we were able to issue one final round 3 batch of grants, details of which are outlined in the Complete Arts Emergency Relief Fund award list that was submitted along with today's agenda. With this final batch of grants, it brings our grand total for this year's Arts Relief Funds to just over $250,000, $258,000, which was used to support 300 grants for solo artists and small ensembles across the city. This reflects direct funding to a total of 645 individual artists throughout LA. Artists living in all 15 council districts, as far as Canoga Park, to Hunga, Boyle Heights, to Watts, and everything and everywhere in between.
Did you say, can you just say that number again? I just want to make sure. 600 and what?
645 individual artists, all LA-based artists.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's really very exciting. As you know, as you can see in the award list, most of these folks are primarily dance, music, and theater artists. As our program emphasized support for those folks initially, we did open up eligibility down the end of the run of the program, opening it up to film screening, literary readings, visual art shows as well. So those folks are there, but they do comprise a smaller share of our resulting award list. But yeah, that's a great number. As of this week, I'm happy to report that 97% of all those recipients have been paid. They have money in their pockets, or may have been already spent. But I think it's a testament to just really how quickly we adapted. We're able to review hundreds of submissions, and of course the associated back and forth and applicant support. And my hat's off to my dear Rafa Vaca for taking the lead on that role, who's here also. And really the great benefit of working with a partner like Community Partners, who was super flexible and really prioritized the rolling out of these payments as soon as possible in service of the community. So this program wrapped up in July 31st. Although we've exhausted our available funding at this point, we have created a wait list of some folks who submitted applications otherwise eligible as of the application deadline. Our hope is to be able to support them also once we have a new agreement in place with Community Partners for the coming year. Rafa, if you're here, I'd love a quick note from you if you can comment on that wait list and some recent feedback we've been hearing from our grantees.
Sure thing. So good afternoon, everyone. Just to piggyback off of Ben, as of today, there's a total of 66 applicants who are currently on the wait list for the Arts Emergency Relief Fund for a total of about $50,800. And like Ben said, we're planning to start a new contract with Community Partners, and our hope is to be able to provide funding for all of those who otherwise would have been eligible. And some general feedback from grantees is overall an appreciation for the support, as well as the quick turnaround of the grants and our ability to provide feedback and support for any technical issues that applicants may have. There's also a general hopefulness to be able to safely gather and share the work to audiences and public in the near future. But I'll leave you all with a short message from one of our grantees, a musician by the name of Nadav Peled, who he said, "Thank you so much for the support at this time. The future has been so uncertain and worrisome, but I feel gracious for organizations like yours extending help to our community of artists. I hope you're all keeping safe and feeling well." That's all I have for today.
Rafa, thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's really important to hear back from the folks who are supporting and to celebrate our ability to so quickly support them. So real quickly, looking ahead, we've, of course, this program was initially conceived as a direct response to artists who were experiencing losses from a crushing wave of canceled and postponed gigs due to COVID. Several months into this pandemic now, of course, the challenge isn't so much a canceled gig as it is not getting a gig at all. So That dilemma is in the back of our minds as we're sitting down, kind of thinking how we can envision Arts Activation Fund to look in the coming year. So we're thinking about that now. We hope to have more information potentially as soon as the next commission meeting to share with everybody. But in the meantime, more to come. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to close out 2019-20 with this program and for the commission's continued guidance and support for this work. Thank you all.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Espinosa, is there any way that we can spread the good word for folks that are interested in applying or seeking out relief, or that we can sort of spread on social media, or how to get folks connected with the program?
At the moment, the program has closed as of July 31st, okay. But that's for now. Our hope is to have a program up and running as soon as in a couple of months. The goal of which is to continue to re-envision Arts Activation Fund as a program primarily aimed for individual artists in LA. Sure. So we can use getting the word out, give us a couple of months to prepare what that looks like first, but it'll of course be on the Culture LA website.
And then I'm assuming that the funding cycle will go through the end of next fiscal or something. So, 21, end of July 21.
That's right. We're anticipating a similar kind of a cycle as we experienced this year. So potentially as early as September, all the way up to July next year.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Can I just give a shout out and say thank you so much to Ben and Rafa and the entire grants team. The entire staff of the Department of Cultural Affairs has had to pivot and to reimagine, figure out how to telework in a pretty Byzantine bureaucracy. And you have done so with grace and integrity and commitment to service. And so I just want to thank you both for, truly putting artists first and being in service of making sure that our artists can, get some, buy some groceries, pay some bills, and survive in a really uncertain environment.
Thank you, Danielle.
Well said. Excellent. Thank you. All right, then. Moving on to our next item, item number 8, the General Manager's Report.
So we had a pretty big meeting last week, and I don't have a whole lot of new updates, but I do want to share a couple pieces of information. And Ben and Rafa, you guys should stay on because we're about to announce a new round of individual artist support from a motion that was authored by Council Member Ryu, and by reappropriating arts developer fees specifically for individual artists. They think of them almost as mini commissions. The city has really strict rules around gift of public funds, so we don't ever gift away funds. Everything is basically a fee for service. And so the way that we've crafted this new program is a citywide program that will repurpose approximately $340,000. Eligible artists can receive one-time funding of $500 to $1,500. This is now going to be in partnership with the Center for Cultural Innovation. So the program structure is slightly different because the source of the funds is different and it has different governing requirements. But we're really excited about it. It'll be the next round of citywide funding. And then we might be able to then, once we exhaust this, pivot back over to the Arts Activation Fund individual art support so that we can kind of keep stretching that out. What we know about this global pandemic, and I think we are all getting to a point where we now realize that we have moved from crisis to a chronic situation, and we need to basically try to weather the chronic reality of what many artists and creatives are going to be facing over the next 18 to 24 months. We can't gather. I don't anticipate that that's going to change anytime soon. Artists simply don't have the ability to make the same money as they did before. And it's very expensive to live in Los Angeles. So that's really tricky. So that's exciting. That's going to go out today, and we can absolutely share out on social, and everybody please help amplify that. I also wanted to report out that our next round of the Community Teaching Artist Certificate Program is now accepting applications. This is a partnership that we have developed with California State University and PAGE, which is the professional and global education. It's the certificate program of Cal State LA. So they're supporting the back end, and the College of Arts and Letters is providing the curriculum. It's the first of its kind in the country. We piloted this last year. It launched right before the pandemic hit. But it was so incredibly successful. Both Cal State LA, PAGE, and the Department of Cultural Affairs wants to continue this. This is a very important program because what it does is it provides a credentialing mechanism for teaching artists that may have not come up through the traditional four-year university process. So think traditional cultural practitioners, think artists who may have developed their craft in alternative settings, such as the prison system or community-based systems that are all equally important and valid in terms of building an artistic practice. Our goal is to ensure that every member eventually of our teaching artist staff, the Department of Cultural Affairs has one of the largest teaching artist cohorts of any city in the country. So we have over 100 teaching artists on our rosters. And we're cycling through those teaching artists for this program. So we're providing a professional development opportunity for them to attend this program free of charge. And then we're also working with the Economic Workforce Development Program to provide scholarships for artists and or other practitioners who may have lost their jobs. They may be also eligible for tuition forgiveness or reimbursement. So those are two really exciting projects. As I reported last week and the week, I think the month prior, we have been looking at, we have submitted a CARES Act proposal to help support the nonprofit cultural sector. That is now with the COVID-19 committee. We've also submitted a request to the city legislative analysts around the reappropriation of LAPD funding so that we can support the great work that our community arts centers are doing, specifically in Black, Brown, low-income communities of color. And we're very hopeful that that some of those resources will come through in the next period of time. I will say that TOT is down 90%, and the department is 90% reliant on TOT, which is the hotel bed tax. So there is big questions around, what does next year look like? And I'm working with the mayor's office and the budget team to really kind of identify what our steps are to ensure that the department is supported without TOT. So that's it for me. I can leave it open for any questions that you may have.
I got to get a T-shirt that says you're on mute.
I know.
It's like the 14th week, and I still. Thank you, Danielle. And then Danielle, if I'm not mistaken, the council is looking at the budget on a quarterly basis now. Is that correct?
Which makes it really difficult to plan. So I will tell you that the department is both a direct service provider where we provide essential workforce development, community development, and human development programs through our community art centers. We're a funder, we're a grant maker, and we provide over 300 grants to nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. It's important to note that over 2/3 of our grantee portfolio operates below $250,000. They do not have sufficient cash reserves. Most of their resources are matched by earned revenue. Earned revenue is non-existent. If they had a safety net of 3 to 6 months, that is going to be gone, and they actually don't have access to SBA loans, or some of them actually did well on payroll protection programs, but right now with Congress deadlocked, everybody's being held in the balance. My concern is that we're going to be losing a sector that we've spent the last 40 years building. That will impact our ability to accelerate economic recovery. And that will further pull our communities down in terms of morale and spirit. So we're fighting hard.
Yeah, that's it's tough. Yeah, I mean, I think where we're at in what we do here at the commission and the department is really at the intersection of everything that's going on right now. There's a cultural shift and an economic shift that's happening, and the constituents that we serve and the folks that we fund are really at the intersection of both of those things. So it's extraordinarily difficult and troubling, and speaking for myself. Yes.
I would just say that I think that the cultural sector has done a great job. I think there's great value with our mayor. There's great value with the city council. I think that the economic crisis is unlike anything any of them or us have experienced in our lifetime. And it will take a Herculean effort to figure out how we ensure the city is able to continue its services from culture to public works to, to power, et cetera. I mean, it's a pretty big challenge.
Absolutely. Any questions from commissioners at all? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
So first off, thank you for not only giving us that briefing, but I also wanted to say thank you for the effort that went on, the discussion that went on before with regards to how we reallocated the Arts Festival funds. Bravo. The 600+ artists, et cetera, did not go without being heard. So quiet applause, but we were applauding on this side. The other side is, the question is, the money that we used for, let's say, the Cal State LA certification program, is that coming from TOT money as well? Is that funded through that?
Yeah, everything is funded except for public art through TOT. We reimburse the general fund for every service. Every time we turn on the lights, basically, we reimburse the general fund for all of our salaries, for fringe, pension. Daniel just joined. Daniel, what's our cap rate these days?
It's about 124%.
So what does that mean in terms of if somebody's salary is $75,000?
So we're paying upwards of $150,000 for those individuals with all of the costs that are included. That's their salary and the additional cap cost.
When you say the cap cost, you mean, in other words, it's their salary plus a pro rata share of lights?
I mean, it's lights, it's buildings, it's insurance, all of those things, and their health insurance and computers and LAPD, all of the little pieces that go into what costs the city can collect from its special funds are included in there.
And agencies that get their money directly from the general fund, are they charged on a per per employee sharing a pro rata share of cost of running the building? Or are they paying, or is it paying for the person and then the actual cost of running the building as separate entities?
It's separate. So the general funded positions only, departments only pay for the position. And the other part is a large, it's taken into account as a larger cost for the city, but the general fund doesn't charge itself for those costs.
So that my only next question is that is from an advocacy point of view, both as commissioners and in the agency, at a time where we see what happens when the entire agency is dependent upon a source of revenue that you do not control and have no ability to control, whether or not at minimum the TOT should only be reimbursing for the cost of the human being and not the cost of having the building and the lights to operate the agency. And the only reason I'm suggesting this is that obviously it's a terrible time to turn to everybody and go, see, 100% TOT wasn't a good idea, was it? But it does suggest that our agency is being, not only were we always cut first and put in that position of losing our budget, but then we at least, got TOT 100% and everybody went, okay, and we thought that might be okay. And now here we are in fact, a worse position than where we would have been if we at least had our general fund supporting our baseline non-human costs. And I would imagine that if it's tied to human beings and it truly does cost 50 cents of every dollar to operate the building, and if you were to reduce your staff, you'd still be down because you wouldn't have enough money to cover the cost of operating the building. So at some point, if we were going to, as they are quarterly or whatever, looking at this, a structural reform about the way the agency is funded seems to me to be something that has to be in the mix. And although that sounds like a crazy thing in the middle of COVID and in the middle of a budget crunch, if we don't bring this conversation up now, we will never be able to have this conversation. So I just, that was why I asked, and I appreciated you guys sort of bringing this home, because one of our last meetings, think about all the kinds of things that we need to be saying something about. And one of them that kept striking me was, even if COVID was over tomorrow, theoretically, we should also be in a situation that if we're going to live off of TOT, we should be 3 or 4 years in front of, so that if something goes wrong, you've got like a 3 or 4 year moment to figure out how to fix it, then fix it overnight when you can't fix it overnight.
And can I just add a few more pieces to it, just so in addition to paying the related costs, we still also have to pay for any of our building maintenance and our custodial, and we pay, it's closer to $900,000 in LAPD security services so that we can provide security at our facilities. So a large part of our TOT allocation will go back to supporting the general fund departments that we depend on to be able to operate.
Right. And we also pay, I think, $288 to El Pueblo, but their cap rate is higher. So it actually ends up being about $1 million.
Their cap rate is upwards of 200%. So the $285,000 that we give towards the El Pueblo Museum guides, the part-time employees, it comes out to close to $1 million.
And to Daniel's point, that means that we are also responsible for building maintenance and facility upgrades to historically sensitive buildings. Many of our buildings are over 50 years old. So their deferred maintenance is quite high. There's also markups with GSD. So it is, we've been exercising other pots of resources, specifically through Proposition K, Alma and our Alma Gibson, our Director of Administration, and her team have done just an extraordinary job. And Scott Bay on this call, he joined our team last year, and Scott has just been unbelievably invaluable at being able to kind of implement deferred maintenance projects for specifically our community art centers. And I don't want this to be a complaining session, but I do want to just point out that as we have these conversations about racial and cultural equity, I am unbelievably struck by the pedigree of new public works and architectural submissions that this commission is reviewing. And so we're seeing these LEED standard, these beautifully designed brand new buildings for, DWP and sanitation and public works. And then we're literally working with, crumbling buildings for community arts. And there is a really stark tale of two efforts here that I find hard to reconcile at times. I just have to share that.
Yeah, point well taken. And I think just as you've mentioned it, sort of as a segue from our meeting, a special meeting from last week, Danielle, if you'd like to be able to talk a little bit about racial equity executive directive number 27, and perhaps touch on the plans that are underway with the
I
department
mean, I
in
think
addressing
so much of it is a plan to plan. We, this work, and I really appreciated the conversation last week. This work does not take place in 2 months. This is not about just counting. This is about engaging every aspect of the department, our workforce, how we engage and issue contracts and provide opportunities through contracts, either through our grant making or through public art commissions or other, consultancies. And then our direct services, which is very much around our community arts programming. And, everything that we do is under the rubric of cultural equity. So, I think that we're still putting the pieces in place. And we'll share more as soon as that's available.
Okay. Excellent.
Can I ask a question? Yes. But a plan was submitted on the 7th, correct?
No, ma'am. No, we were waiting to get the data from our part-time employees so that we could paint that true picture. We just received that data and we'll be submitting next on Friday.
Is there a way, and I'm going to assume that there might not be, because if you share it with us as commissioners, you've got to share it with the public, which right now you want to let the mayor's office have a chance to give you feedback before we know.
That's what the mayor's office is preparing to do. They're receiving drafts and then we engage in a conversation.
Okay. So after they've had a chance to look at your first draft, but before it is a final to the mayor, is there an opportunity for us to, as the commission, to engage in this again? The reason I'm asking the question is that I would, not only do we want to stand in support of whatever ends up being submitted by us, but we don't want to be in a situation where there's something about what we're saying that then is going to the mayor and the mayor's trying to put that out there and we're commenting after the fact. I don't want to put him, I want to put us in a position where going into this, we are buy into the direction that we're suggesting, whether the mayor takes it or not, of what we're suggesting. And therefore the mayor knows that that he's also got the commissioners behind him as he's trying to choose from the palette of what he's got to do to make this racial equity initiative happen. And it's an important initiative that he has. But I don't want to look like we're coming in after the fact commenting.
Yeah, there will probably be, it's such a tricky situation because this has to be an iterative process. And the mayor is requesting a certain set of data points and quote, an action plan. And that action plan is really about a process that we need to engage at every level with this agency. And so that includes commission, that includes employees, and that includes the diverse communities that we serve. And again, we can't do this in the middle of a pandemic in 2 months. It's not possible. But what we can do is we can put forward where we're at right now. And that is what Deputy Mayor Brenda Shockley is saying, is where are you at right now? What is the baseline? And where are you trying to get to by when? And that is what I think is the approach that we're taking after many consultations with the Neighborhood Equity Working Group.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the general manager on this item? All right. Well, I believe that brings us to our final items here. Commission announcements and reports. We've got our next meeting date, which is September 9th. So that'll be after Labor Day. It's hard to believe.
I think, is there an agenda item for commission's priorities? That is, I thought what we.
It's what we had talked about, but I'm looking at the commission here, or the
revised agenda.
I'm looking at the one that was made available to the public. So.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. I thought we were going to do commission priorities. Are you saying it didn't end up on the agenda?
That is what I'm seeing here.
But we have just heard a report about where we are with the equity plan and the timing of that information, and that to some extent it is a plan about a plan for our process.
Can I just ask Jackie to confirm, because we did, Jackie posted the agenda, but we caught the issue. So she submitted a revised agenda. That is the posted agenda to the public.
When was that submitted? The last one?
Felt like it was last Thursday or Friday when we chatted about.
That was the most recent.
Jackie, can you please weigh in?
I think you might be on mute. Miss Cornelius, are you there?
Yes, there was a
Excellent.
revised agenda sent to all the commissioners. And it was posted on the city clerk's website.
Oh, if it's on city clerk's, great. I was looking at DCA, so let me take a look.
Yeah, city clerk, and then it was sent to all the commissioners.
Oh, excellent.
And when was that, Jackie?
I'm sorry?
When was it posted on the city clerk's website?
Yes. And also, it was also sent to all the commissioners and to the, and also to the city attorney.
When, Jackie? Just remind us.
On Friday. Last
Okay.
Friday.
Okay, we're good then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think, Jackie, the issue is that the commission president doesn't have the correct agenda.
I'm pulling it up right now. So there it is. So I was pulling the agenda from the, so seems to be a discrepancy. I was pulling my agenda rather than referring to the email that I pulled it from the Culture LA. So next item number 9, commission priorities fiscal year 20 to 21, and we have an action item. So yes, number 9. So I'm a little bit, how do we want to approach this one? Whose item should this be? We're all looking.
And I'll grab it.
Thank you.
Last meeting, and we came out of this one wanting to see if we could set some priorities. Interestingly enough, it wasn't articulated in my head, but it became while we were talking today, was that one of our priorities would be to try to encourage that no matter what, in terms of the projects that are coming before us, directly related to our business, is that we would have, that there's an ongoing question that's asked the people coming before us whether or not they have in fact engaged with the community around their project and have had community input on their project. So that this notion of equity and transparency and engagement and all of that stuff is just a standing part of what comes before us. And so that if someone's asking us for final, that they definitely have engaged in those processes, and we can make that assumption, the staff can be asking those questions. So while that was basic, it brought home today's thing. I didn't formulate into my head until I watched it happen. And today's thing was a perfect example of how we can put some things into immediate action long before we know about the rest of it. And that was one of them.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I think it's been something that we've done out of practice, and it'll be good to sort of codify that.
If you're talking about repeal of Prop 209, is that it? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the idea that as projects come before us, we have an expectation that community has been engaged in that process, and that what we're being asked to approve is that has had some level of community involvement. If they want to say that I showed it to the councilman and he's the only one that has to look at it, we can make a decision whether we think that's good enough. But bottom line is that they have engaged in that. And that I view that as one of those things that is aligned with the notion of that the community is being equitably engaged in its city processes.
Okay, so let me just say something. I should have said something before, and I'm glad you brought it up so I could bring it up today. And that is, this commission's responsibility is really pretty much limited to architectural design in connection with that. We really have nothing to do with the community engagement piece of it, unfortunately.
So I'm going to give an answer back to that. The community, we cannot get engaged in approving an architectural design unless we know that the community has had a chance to have some input, because otherwise we've approved it. Then they go to the community and tell them we said yes. And then if the community wants to change it, then theoretically they should have to bring it back to us. And so rather than play, one of the problems with the system that we have is that it goes backwards. And we're saying yes. Meanwhile, the community doesn't have a chance to say anything. Or the community then comes back and says, well, wait a minute, nobody asked me. And then it turns contentious.
Okay, well, I hear what you're saying, but these are the confines of your discretion on the board as a board member. We really shouldn't be talking about it. And well, I should say it shouldn't be a consideration. And it shouldn't, going forward, we really have to be more strict about this.
So
not my decision.
I won't try and hog this, but I am standing on this platform of rebellion at the moment.
Okay.
That's not personal to you.
Oh, I know.
On this issue, one or two things can happen. Someone tells me that the community has reviewed it and therefore we will review it, or they haven't had the community review it, at which point I could look at an architectural design and go, well, the answer is no.
Well, you can do that, but if your consideration, if your consideration is, you can vote how you want, but if you're considering whether the community has given input, formal input, it's not, it's just not a valid consideration, and the board president should not be entertaining that.
So I'm gonna give my one last sentence on this, and then I will shut up. If our job is to look at the aesthetic and architectural layout for the city, to see whether or not ideas that are coming before us fit with the neighborhood, fit with the approaches that are being taken by the city, make architectural sense, make use sense, etc. All of those factors require understanding what the community is, how it works, how it will use the space, and how the architectural design fits in with that space. In order to understand that, you've got to know something about the community it is going into and how it views the space it is in. So a very dull, uninteresting building going in the middle of an industrial back alley does not have the same meaning as the same building going up on the middle of Wilshire Boulevard. And I will not give care and consideration to Wilshire Boulevard that I might not give to others. So we have to figure out a way to fix this, but I think that the interpretation of what we consider when we figure out the architectural aesthetic appropriateness cannot be devoid of the location and the place and the use in which it is going. Now,
I don't disagree with you. I think that that's different. That's totally different. Whether something fits within the community is different, and it's adjacent buildings, you know, trees, makeup of the community, whether it's residential, commercial, whatever. That's a lot different than requiring community input before giving conceptual or final.
Lori, can I ask you a question? What would it take to revise the commission's purview?
I don't know. I'll have to find out.
Maybe that's something that we can actually look into.
Okay.
This is an issue that comes up repeatedly. And maybe there is, and as we think about what the commission's priorities are over the next year, you know, maybe this is one of those that actually creates some sort of a rubric for evaluating architectural design or architectural review within a community cultural context. And Charmaine, I'll just pivot that back over to you. Because there may be, you know, is that something that could we establish a set of criterion that we would need to basically develop in order for that to be considered and reviewed equitably?
Let's put it this way, and I actually might want to let the architects amongst us draw into this, but it is my opinion that any architect who designs without context is not a designer. They're engaged in masturbation. And so therefore, you must put whatever you are building within the context of where it is going to live. And we as commissioners cannot assess aesthetic appropriateness or the value of the change, not whether or not it'll continue to stand for 100 years, but whether it is appropriate for the location or the direction of the city without context. So either we need a context statement for our agency that our commission is following that reflects that, or we need an update in the way this is perceived to be interpreted. I certainly expected any language that says our purview is not any of the things we spend some of our time talking about. I understand that. But we are commissioners, and John Q. Public often thinks that we have a broader role. So I'm not arguing that particular part of it right now. I'm just looking at the issue of how do you assess and determine the appropriateness of design, aesthetics, and use in our role going forward, and recognizing that other agencies have other parts to play in this. And then what's the sequence that all of that should occur in? And either we speak first and then it goes out to the public, or the public weighs in and then we decide whether or not we're agreeing with the public. But right now it goes back and forth with varying degrees with no consistency, and it's not fair to the people presenting to us, and it is not fair to the public.
I think there's two different issues going on though, Charmaine. There's you're talking about the appropriateness of a building on a site, and getting back to the earlier project, they addressed site, they addressed all of the issues of how you look at the building, how you enter the building. I think it's really hard to put criteria on context and if it's a design appropriateness. I think you're referring more to criteria of, did it meet the material specifications? Did they bring that before us? Is public comment part of our pure purview or not? I mean, they're separate issues. I think it's really hard to put the definition on. I mean, I do think that this project fully met the requirements of context, site, design, and it was highly sophisticated. The issue of whether or not it was brought before the public is a totally separate issue, right? And that's what we need clarification on. Is that really under our purview to ask or not? I mean,
Commissioner Ho?
we need help because we don't know where our boundaries are. But design-wise, I think it's hard to put something on, a criteria for us approving the design. That's such an open-ended topic. I mean, John, maybe you can further.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Alyssa, given our background as designers, we're trained in a certain way to think about things like scale, materiality, parti. We think about the public realm in a certain way. And I felt like the previous iterations of this body had actually developed a set of a framework, if you will, for future commissioners to look at projects. So I would encourage, Danielle, do you, I believe in our original binders, they were in hard copy. Do you have that memo? I believe it was Commissioner York Chang and Commissioner Annie Chu that had developed or had a subcommittee of some sort that developed this memo that they left for posterity for us to take a look at. If that's available, if you could have Jackie distribute that electronically, I think that might address some of the issues. So I think I agree, Alyssa, there's a couple things going on here. There's, our judgment as commissioners, and I think we can ask the question and say, have you considered something, whether it be light, human scale, traffic pad, whatever that design element may be. And my thought is that the community engagement piece may be an aspect that we can ask about. And the response to that, we can then weigh in on as far as the project's suitability in being reviewed. So I agree. I do think they're kind of slightly different but related topics and issues and avenues for us to take a look at. I'm sorry, I keep stepping on Commissioner Ho. Would you like to say something as well?
Yeah, sorry. This question is for the city attorney, Ms. Rittenberg. This is not the first time that we've prioritized asking the folks who are before us whether they've received or solicit community feedback. You've been with us quite some time and understand that that's a priority for us. What is it about today that that caused alarm where you are sharing this information with us today versus the various times when we held other applicants accountable to community feedback?
I'm learning as we're going. This is a process for me. I've been away from it for a while. I was out for about 6 months due to health issues. I am back now, but we're all learning together. I'm learning as I'm going, just like you are. I don't really have an answer other than that.
But it should be a simple question, right? I mean, is it under our?
Let me double check on the commissioner handbook. I have that too, and I'll double check I'll double check. And but it's been my understanding all along that, from what I've been told, that the responsibility of this board is to opine and approve or disapprove projects based upon architectural design.
Yeah, I just think the inconsistency puts us in a position to be, okay, so here's my goal, is to be consistent and fair to every applicant that comes before us, right? And we are all accountable to that. And we sit here and tell people that they need, we're asking these questions and we're not consistent ourselves. I think that's completely unfair. So let's find out. And if whatever the answer is, I'm with Charmaine, and there's two things here. There's architectural, right? And I really rely on Alyssa and John to really advise us on that. The other part is, I don't think we can sit here as a body and approve something without context. And that context is whether or not the community has had feedback. So that's the question I'd like to find out, Ms. Rittenberg. And I think we are accountable to a consistent filtering and evaluation of anything that comes before us.
Got it?
Thank
I
you.
understand. Can I just add the following thought, which is that it is very possible that, for example, in the building that we all thought looks really great for Cole, as an example, I'm just citing as an example. Great design, perfect. It's possible that the community wanted the building to be yellow. I mean, I can think of every reason in the world why it should be exactly what they did, and there was nothing wrong with what was architecturally designed. But what if the community felt we just need something bright and colorful and etc.? I may or may not agree one way or the other, but their chance to engage in that, one, was not there. And so therefore, that same design could have had some additional elements. Similarly, on the flip side, if you take what was the LAWA discussion, where we were concerned about what would be ultimately visible, not only from the road, but from those people who are looking out over what currently looks like a plain vista that now is going to have some little stuff sticking out of it. When we challenged back, they came back with a deeper thought and a deeper approach, and it really did make it much better. So sometimes we can be that, and sometimes the public can be that. Lastly, the other agencies that have to weigh in on this, sometimes we'll get, well, they already said yes. And then sometimes they may be getting that we already said yes. So the sequence of events that allows everyone to feel like that we can do this as efficiently and effectively as possible is really important, I think, in the process. And therefore, I can think of one project we recently approved where none of us were excited about the artistic approach, but clearly the public that had fought to get this, that wanted it, that was going to use it, felt good about it. So it's like the difference between, I'm not fond of velvet paintings, but I know the difference between a good one and a bad one. I might not like one, but I can approve one going in somewhere if it's what someone wants, if I think it's the best of what they could get of that style of work. So it is in those contexts, and we see this in the arts all the time, performing and otherwise, especially those of us who have had to evaluate artistic product, where it might not be our taste, but we have to be able to tell the difference between whether it's well presented, produced, blah, 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 blah. So in that context, it is in that realm that I would like to know that we have that. And because we also have a community out there right now that is speaking up more than ever before about its right to weigh in on government. So we might as well be ahead of it instead of behind it.
Yeah, I mean, just I'd like to maybe make a final comment on this topic, and then I think I've got an idea about how we can move forward. You know, the way I've always discussed the commission and its role, and even referring back to the ordinance in which it was established, you know, we're really about weighing in on the public realm in the city of Los Angeles. And think it's very easy to draw that connection. You know, the public in public realm is engaging the people that are the stakeholders of the city. So I don't think it's too far of a stretch for us to imagine that input as being as valid as the input of an architect, as the input of the end user. The stakeholder group is maybe not physically on the property all day long, but the fact that they interface vis-a-vis the public realm is absolutely within the purview. Mr. Evanesian, I'm sorry, did you have your hand up or?
Yes.
Please.
As far as I know, part of the requirements for every project is a community input. And when they give the projects to outside designers and architects, when they design the project, they're supposed to have 2 or 3 community meetings. This project was in-house and somehow they just went with it and did not go through that.
Yeah. So I know Mr. Lair, for example, like just the 2 meetings ago when we had that community center in Hollywood, and Michael Lair,
Yes.
associate, they had a number of community meetings that had influenced the design in such a way that it actually changed the diagram and the way that they organized the site and the connection of one side of the site to the other. So that was certainly something that heartened me as a commissioner to hear them talk about that process and how it informed the design. So, yeah, sorry.
This is Danielle, and I just want to point out, Harut, I think then what we need to start doing, if it is a requirement of every public project, then we need to make sure that each presentation has this as a bullet point that the presentation needs to address. Because the people that are presenting to this commission are presenting through a design lens. They're not including the full scope of the project. And maybe the best thing to do is just have them touch upon this in their presentation, that is something that we want to hear from them on, given that it's a requirement from other commissions and planning.
Just want to say Celso Del Pozo has been with the city for forever, and he's managed a lot of projects over time, and he has gone through that. And I'm really surprised that came up and that they hadn't gone through it. It might be the COVID or something else that they just bypassed that. But we'll make sure that we do that in future. We just make sure.
Yeah, I think that would make a huge difference in making sure that the presenters are really understanding who their audience is and that they just bake it into their presentation.
Yes. Can I also say something about, the requirements and the aesthetics? We do have the design review workbook, which all the for answering to like Elisa's and Charmaine's concerns, that we do have all these set of guidelines that they're supposed to, at every aspect of the design, they're supposed to consider in their design. So I can forward that to anyone.
I think, yeah, if you could, because I think it was in our original sort of incoming commissioners binders, if you could recirculate that'd be great. That way it can sort of be top of mind for everyone. Yeah, I think what I was going to say is that I think, while there may be some friction about at the commission level, it sounds like, but at the staff level, this can be very easily administered without friction at all. I do also want to say, I mean, for this particular item and this commission priorities, I mean, we are empowered by ordinance to convene a committee of 2 to 3 commission members. And I wanted to sort of maybe have a discussion about that. There was an appetite for establishing a committee of commissioners to really dive into 2021 priorities and sussing out what those could, should, and may be. I'd like to just throw that out there and see how that perhaps lands with the other commissioners.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we should probably put it on the agenda for the next meeting, right? Or do we volunteer now, or how does that work?
I was going to say, if there are 2 to 3 members present today, and then we can also, I mean, we are missing Commissioner Gallardo and Commissioner Vinson. So, I mean, look, I guess let's talk about the idea of the commission right now, or the committee rather. And we just, for purposes of the ordinance, I think we're only allowed 2 to 3, I believe, members to be on that committee that would make a regular report to the commission at our regularly scheduled commission meeting. So Commissioner Jefferson, I saw you giving a thumbs up, just for the record. Commissioner Ho?
Thumbs up, but it was also recognition that when we met last time, we talked about talking this time with each other about what we thought some of the priorities would be.
Yep.
Obviously that, I have a list. I'm sure each of you has some kind of list, but some preliminary conversation before it convenes over to committee. And the only reason I say that is because this train is moving so fast with the potential pending enormous budget cut that this agency could take, along with other things. We have almost no choice but to engage very quickly, and waiting every month is a complication. So I just would hope that we won't go away today without hearing from other commissioners a little bit about what they think some of the priorities were. Obviously, my other one has to do with the mayor's racial equity plan and development, et cetera. And the third one just has to do with whatever we can do to help make sure we can save this agency's budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the top of my list, and the one that just in my mind seems the highest priority is really helping to advocate and ensure adequate funding for the department. I mean, that would be my top priority. I think everything would flow from that. So, I mean, if I were to throw down my one thing on a priority list, it would be making sure that there is a mechanism that funds the department in an adequate way that's in alignment with being top creative city in the world, the 15th largest economy or whatever we're at now, and a major exporter of the arts, of culture, of ideas. So that's my one small offering about priority, and I don't know where that ends up, but I have a feeling it ends up in a place much bigger than what I can possibly think of right now. Commissioner Scarpano, I'm just going to start calling other priorities. So, I mean, we've got community engagement. We've got potential purview of the commission itself. We've got funding for you, Commissioner.
Mine is really purview of the commission. I think what's the most, frustrating, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure for the other commissioners, is when things are presented to us and I don't know who the gatekeeper is. Harut, if that's you, or who the gatekeeper is for architectural submissions, that they meet all the requirements and that we know they've met community engagement, they've met the material palette, they've met the program, whatever the case is, that we're not having to do what we did today, which is sort of deny a project moving forward because of a technicality that somebody did not pick up before, that's supposed to be helping us make the decision. And that's what I'm going to ask for, and I've asked for 100 times. Like,
so
make sure
just
they
to
have a checklist and they've met all their requirements before it comes to us and we have to reject them. I mean,
okay. I mean, I think just to be clear, we didn't hold up the project. We did approve at a conceptual level. They weren't given a final approval, but yeah.
But if we would have known that they had community engagement or not from the beginning, we could have approved for conceptual and final. And now these people don't have to come back to us again. So it's a waste of their time and our time. That's all.
So I'll sort of record that as just gatekeeping and
yeah, we need, we need you to
consistent.
Yeah.
Consistent intake.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ho?
My priority, I have a couple. The main one is the money. I want to make sure that DCA gets their money, or allow us to advocate for funding for DCA. The other one for me is, and it's difficult for me to kind of articulate the priority yet because I still want to see the result of the equity survey of our mostly just a survey of our employees, full-time and part-time and all that, because I saw some numbers on there that to me I want to look closer at, but I know that it's not complete yet. So that hiring is a priority for me. So those are the two.
Excellent. Commissioner Paquette?
I would say there are three areas in no order of importance, and they're all important. And I think that to think of what Charlemagne mentioned earlier, Hire LA Youth and the Creative Pathways program, which our director has been very involved with, and I would like to see us get more involved with that, because we need to provide greater access to quality internships, which can lead to a career for minorities in Los Angeles. Yeah. It's the number one thing that is important to me, because I mentioned this in previous board meetings. What this pandemic has done was made a much greater divide. And if you're a child that is part of LAUSD, you're in trouble. Particularly those that don't have internet, don't have computers. So we need to, as a one of the only creative department of the city, we got to do something. And I have been saying this for a long time, but every time I talk about it, every time I say it, it falls on deaf ears, which is okay. And you can easily say, well, why aren't you doing something? Which is a very good question. But we don't do anything about it. And this dovetails to making sure we don't get our budget cut. And I can be helpful in that regard.
Excellent.
So, to which I will end with, use me. Just use me. I work in a movie studio and I have access to things.
Yeah.
But seriously, I care about this stuff, and I want to do something.
Perfect. Be careful what you wish for.
I'm here. Look, here I am. I'm here 24/7 for the past 5 months, sitting right here. I'm not going anywhere. My daughter has asthma. I don't travel. We just stay here. So I'm free.
Excellent.
But we all have our very, very specific skill sets. And we need to hone in and take advantage of that. Otherwise, we just show up for meetings once a month and they go on and they go on and nothing gets done.
Yep.
Don't do anything.
Yep. I feel, we got to make sure, what's the old adage, we're not so busy mopping the water that we forget to turn off the faucet. We got to solve the bigger problems.
Not the people that work.
No, clearly, yeah. Commissioners. And finally, Charmaine. And mind you, I still feel like I would like to engage at our next meeting the other commissioners that didn't have a chance to speak on this as well. But I mean, I'll just repeat her. I've heard 3 times now the funding topic, so that's definitely making the list. So and Charmaine, just to maybe close us out, unless there are any other comments from the commissioners, and then I'll see if there's public comment, and then we can figure out how to put a bow on this.
I deeply appreciate this conversation, and I believe that it not only links into the kind of work that the agency has to do in response to the mayor's executive order 27, that's the right number, but with regards to the racial equity issues, but it also ties into our budget. And I just would close with the following. I believe that our city cannot end up being one that is big and great as Los Angeles is, that we went backwards and stopped having a cultural affairs commission, department. As a matter of fact, it frankly should stand in greater independence than it does right now. And so not only have our council members and our mayor and all of our arts community worked so hard and got past so many budget cuts to get to this moment. It's way too easy for people to just simply think, okay, well, you know, maybe the county will give us some money, or it's okay, we'll just, you know, muddle through this. And I don't think any of our officials deserve that, and I don't think our city deserves it. So I'm, however far we can go, and this puts Ms. Rittenberg in a very awkward position, because theoretically, our mandate is not the oversight of all things cultural affairs. But John Q. Public does think that we are all things cultural affairs. So at some point, there may be a moment in one of these city council meetings, we'll have to decide, I leave that to the agency general manager. There may be a point where we emphasize the fact that our role, though it is on one hand narrow, on the other hand is seen by the public as having a wider berth, and we intend to fill out that berth in ways supportive, not, you know, I'm not throwing up a thing and saying, you know, let's burn the whole thing down. I'm just simply saying it's too easy for people, for folks to decide that that's not our mission. And let me, as I've said to some of you, heard me say this, for all of the commissioners that are meeting, for all of the ones that the mayor is pulling to meet with, the affinity groups, etc., having had the opportunity now to sit in on multiple meetings with multiple commissioners from multiple agencies and seeing how distinctly different our roles and responsibilities are, but with the exact same title behind our name. But it is that those distinctions are not clear to the public. So we could get held accountable for expectations. I certainly know our nonprofit community would think that we have a role to help support and fight for this agency that might not be described in the mandate for our particular commission, but that other commissioners and other agencies would be expected to do. So we have a very awkward moment right now. And I think we have to live up to the one that fights for the whole community, and not just our particular mandate as it is described on the piece of paper.
I mean, I will, just as a matter of reference, I had printed out the ordinance that had established the Cultural Affairs Department and the Board of Cultural Affairs Commissioners, and it was a little over 40 years ago. So it looks like May 15th, 1980, when it was executed by Mayor Bradley, that established the department. And it does start out, the people of the city of Los Angeles do ordain as follows. And I think we can't forget the people. So that's what we're here for. So let's keep that in mind. I want to put a bow on this. I unfortunately, you know, we don't have some of the other commissioners here that I think might be interested in both speaking and or serving on this committee idea. Maybe I'll put it out like this. Is there, in lieu of establishing the committee now, but when we have maybe a more further input from the other commissioners, we can either form the committee at the next meeting with the understanding that there will be a committee being formed, or we can alternatively, maybe this time, if we did want to appoint, start with one commissioner that will sort of lead that committee as of right now, and then we'll sort out who the other single or who the other one or two members would be to be on that committee. So maybe that's the discussion point next. If there's any thoughts or feelings, I'd be interested in hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, what do you think?
Sorry. Look, I am absolutely happy to serve, and I think that every priority that every commissioner has listed here fits right in line with both our agency budget function and our how can we make this city more useful and how can we make the arts more available to both careers and opportunities and etc. So happy to help serve. I think I would ask that maybe perhaps what you can do is ask the other two commissioners, without creating a serial conversation between them, what their priorities might have been, because they were on the last meeting call, so that at least coming into this next meeting, we have some ideas. it will also possibly help shape some of the cultural master plan talking points that Danielle has got to do in terms of trying to be in a position to develop a cultural master plan for the city. So I'm happy to serve and help in whatever way I can. I'm ready to do it.
I'm gonna maybe go out on a limb here. Would you object to being that first initial member to help lead that committee, Commissioner Jefferson?
I'd be happy to.
I'm putting you on the spot, so I.
No. I really am happy to do this. I have no problem with it. I'm just trying to avoid me asking them and letting the president of the commission ask them first for their opinions, feed that back to me, and then let me go. Let us go from there. So that, because I don't want to do anything that violates the rules, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and I think the once we do have this established committee, it will be a reporting item on the public record. So there are no secrets here at all. So if I could digest and without objection, if there was a motion to form a committee led by Commissioner Jefferson to codify priorities for the commission, I would absolutely entertain that motion.
I'll second.
Well, we got to move first. Is there?
Oh, I thought you were making
sorry,
a motion to move.
Well, no. That
sounded like.
It's generally speaking with Robert's Rules of Order as a presiding member of the.
You can't start that.
I open the floor to others in the yes. So you understand. So if there were a motion, I would entertain that.
Okay, I'll move.
So moved by Commissioner Scrifano. And seconded by?
Second by Tian.
Commissioner Ho, thank you very much. I will call the roll now. Let's see here, gotta go through my list. Commissioner Scrifano, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Ho, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes.
Commissioner Paquette?
Yes.
So we have at least in my experience here, our first committee for the commission. Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson, for being voluntold or volunteering to help provide your leadership on this topic. And with that said, next item of business, commission announcements and reports. Are there any? There being none. There's other commission meeting dates. So again, September 9th. So after Labor Day, again, I still can't believe, because the next thing you know, it's going to be Christmas and the end of the year. So excellent. If there is nothing else, is there anything else? Anyone? No? All right. Thank you very much.
For this discussion, guys. Really, thank you.
Absolutely. Then we shall adjourn without objection. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm gonna, instead of my gavel, I've got a sniff. Excellent. Oh, Danielle was on here. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all, staff, everyone, city attorney. Thank you very much. And we'll chat again soon. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.